Welcome. You know what? This NASDAQ, I've just been monitoring its price action. Of course, last night there was a Japanese bank holiday. Didn't really do too much, but my days. I mean, there's defying the laws of gravity, and then there's only one way, and that is up. And that's what it looks like with the NASDAQ. Maybe I will speak too soon and NASDAQ takes a shoe back to the downside, but we got a busy day. We got good old Jerome Powell talking today, and this mad announcement that Donald Trump's going to come out with for cryptocurrency. What's he going to say? Bitcoin is the revolution in finance, and then that's it. Telling us something we already know. Now, on the wire, ladies and gents, it looks like we're getting some interesting information. People are of the expectation that Bitcoin is going to go down. I mean, don't shoot the messenger, yeah? I'm just telling you what everyone's saying. So it saves you going elsewhere and finding out. So I'm not favoring lower prices. Actually, I am. Let's be honest. Like, we want a cheaper Bitcoin. But we're starting to see some interesting behavior with crypto. And given that the stock market is completely just decoupled away from Bitcoin, the idea is investors are like, yeah, we don't want that risk. We want to go over to the NASDAQ. We want to go into stocks because that's where it's at. We can conceptualize a reason as to why we would buy a stock like Nvidia because of the partnerships that they're going into. I mean, that is another weird story, but hey. But the question on everyone's minds is Bitcoin now getting primed for a reversal? Yesterday, this was great. Yesterday, we saw MicroStrategy buying, okay? We had other people buying. MetaPlanet, they were buying. Everyone was buying. I was like, look at all this buying that's happening. And then, of course, players in the ETF sold nearly $980 million worth of Bitcoin. And people are asking, why is price going down? Interesting, isn't it? I'm going to try and keep this live short and sweet. Let's break down the logic of what we can expect today. It's going to be a bit of a volatile day today because Powell's going to be speaking shortly, well, about 5:30 UK time. And then, of course, we've got the manufacturing data that's going to be released at 2:45 UK time, which is 9:45 Eastern Standard. Let's go and make sense of the madness, ladies and gentlemen. Mad love and respect for passing through. No way, ain't no way I'm shorting this, okay? Oh... Anyways, let's break it all down, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. So in front of you, I've got several assets and something you've got to take into consideration. Euro and NASDAQ, S&P, there seems to be this relationship working with them. Euro up, NASDAQ up, S&P up, dollar down. I mean, how low is dollar going to go? It helps Japan, it helps the euro, but the dollar itself is getting obliterated. And, it's not looking good. I mean, you've got the NASDAQ right here, 25,000. I mean, if you just look at this price range here, it has just been despicable. It hasn't gone anywhere, hasn't gone up, hasn't gone down. It just seems like it likes the 25,000 zone. And I do believe that we're not going to really see that much movement until Powell says something. But what's he going to say? Is he going to reiterate what we already know? We need more data. Speaking of which, let's get into it. Data today. So we've got the flash manufacturing PMI due to come out later on. Let's quickly have a look at where we are with it. So the Eurozone, Germany is the largest economy in the Eurozone. You need to keep that in your minds. And whatever's going on in Germany is usually going to be reflected in the overall Eurozone. But it shows here that there was an expansion on the flash services PMI, but contraction in the manufacturing sector. That's no good. It was lower than what they had anticipated. So that's a bit of a problem. And we're now waiting for the flash manufacturing PMI for the US. This has been changed. It was at 51.8. Now it's been revised to 52.2. So that's going to be interesting, which means that there could be an actual good reading coming out today for the US, which would then make sense as to why the dollar's taken a nosedive. Euro's making a move to the upside. Hasn't cleared out the Asian session range just yet. It's pretty much stuck, but that's pretty much the same consensus everywhere you go. So let's just quickly break it all down. Gold again, back in the titles. Okay, let's just quickly have a look at good old dearly beloved gold itself. Here we go. So gold, I mean, whoa. I mean, gold's going up because China's just getting very aggressive with its purchases of gold. But I mean, when does it stop? It doesn't, it's just getting a bit crazy right now. But just breaking it all down, you can see here gold's unprecedented rally pushed higher on efforts by China to bolster its role in the global bullion markets. Happy days. But what we really need to be focusing on is this. Powell today is going to be speaking, and then all of a sudden, this story with Trump, where is it? We've got this discussion here. So could President Trump's speech propel Bitcoin today? Everyone is expecting that there's going to be something. It says here, rumors suggest he may even announce the establishment of a strategic Bitcoin reserve, potentially revolutionizing the US Bitcoin adoption. Okay. Problem is we've had quite a bit of outflows in the ETF. Why is everyone selling? Okay, it says here that the outflows were recorded nearly 439 million, and then we've added some more on that. It says here $980 million worth of Bitcoin sold. BlackRock did not sell it. Remember that. BlackRock did not sell the Bitcoin. BlackRock acts as an agent for its investors. So it means institutional participants are selling the Bitcoin. Where is it? Here you go. You can see here, like, it's not him. They don't hold the Bitcoin. It gets put into a vault. The transfer agent then gets a phone call and they said, BlackRock says, right, offload this X, Y, and Z, and then they offload it. Okay, so we've now got that supply going back into the marketplace, and looking at Bitcoin's price action, we can just pretty much see what the story is. You can see Bitcoin on 5-minute time frame, not really doing good at these levels right here. 1 hour time frame, you can see we've got this structure where it's just not really going up. I mean, the NASDAQ itself, just look at this bull, this, what is this? Like, what happened? It's just paused. No real activity happening. I mean, if we just go into the out of hours markets for the stock market, you see Nvidia's gapping down at the open, Tesla's gapping up at the open, Microsoft is gapping up at the open, Amazon is gapping down, gapping up at the open, Google is not going anywhere, Meta is gapping up at the open. Disney is starting to get a bit of attraction right there, but ultimately oil is making some significant move to the upside. And why is oil going up? That's a bit of a problem for me. If oil's going up, then that means that investors are going over there for a reason. And usually when oil goes up, the stock market pulls back. Quickly breaking down the logic of the yields. So yields were up yesterday, so the stock market said, nope. We don't care. We're a cash-rich company as a tech company. It doesn't matter what the yields are because we can sustain ourselves with these high levels of interest rate. So the yields themselves are not really representing investor sentiment. Well, realistically, they are, because it shows that investors are seeking higher rates of return for holding on to US debt. Now, of course, the 10-year yield itself is still holding at the 4.133. And one interesting aspect is the VIX. The VIX right now is climbing up. And of course, yesterday, the VIX was up 1% and the NASDAQ was up nearly 1%. Nothing makes sense anymore, ladies and gentlemen. I wish we had just prices going down. We could trade back to vectors. But the problem I've got now, ladies and gentlemen, is I'm trading this. I'm trading this space here. I mean, if I could just visually just draw my own vectors and just be like, here you go, this is a blue vector candle. And then I can hope that price is going to trade back into the range or whatever. But jokes aside, ladies and gentlemen, you can see the marketplace itself is very, very extended to the upside. And the logic of it being extended is granting the idea of the following story in terms of bids and asks. This is the most important thing you've got to understand when you are trading in the financial markets, futures markets and cryptocurrency markets. The big difference is this. Futures markets, as in the CME, participants are known. We don't know exactly who they are by name, but we know that there are participants that have size, and they are all going to be obligated to reveal exactly what it is they're doing in terms of orders. So if there's going to be a big batch of $100 million going into the NASDAQ, then logic says the CME is going to be aware of that, who's playing the game, okay? Cryptocurrency as an unregulated environment, there is no sense to it. No one knows who's buying unless you get the wallet and just be like, ooh, what's this? Oh, this is an exchange. But because cryptocurrency relies solely on leverage, it starts to give you a different view on what they're what they allowed and what they can and can't do. Okay. Some of you are like, oh my God, this shouldn't be, they shouldn't be allowed to do this. Like Binance has been offloading Ethereum. Okay. And everyone's like, how can you do this? How can you do this? Well, you've got an unregulated environment. It doesn't matter. When they start to regulate leverage trading in cryptocurrency, you probably won't even be able to get anything more than 30x. All right. They did exactly the same thing in the Forex market. All right. And then that's when it starts to get interesting. Because if there is regulation in terms of leverage when it comes to cryptocurrency, say goodbye to 100x, ladies and gentlemen. That's going to be something in the past. Remember, I was trading with 5,000 to 1 leverage. And you guys are like, oh my God, 100 to 1 leverage. That is just irresponsible. Try trading with 5,000 to 1. All right, you didn't really need that much money to do that because you had so much leverage. But the idea is that that's something that could be happening in the future, which means as well, and when you look at the NASDAQ, look at this. This is lots of people have been offering, okay? They've been selling at these levels, okay? But some statistics came out yesterday saying that Goldman Sachs clients contributed all in all. Their statistics have shown that retail has been piling in to this move to the upside. This is retail dominated, ladies and gentlemen, all right? Nothing stopping this. And as Bloomberg said yesterday, be responsibly bullish, all right? So let me just get to the logic of what we're talking about today and try and keep this live short and sweet. So here's the story. Bitcoin's price could still crash to 99,000. No. We don't want a 99,000 Bitcoin. We want a $160,000 Bitcoin so we can buy it at 160,000. We want the highest price. I say it as a joke, but realistically, you need Bitcoin to sink if you're going to want people to start buying it. Because the idea of value really does come into play when it comes to cryptocurrency, because people are like, I ain't buying Bitcoin at this level, or I ain't going to be selling it at this level. You know, and the problem that we've got in cryptocurrency is because it's so heavily dominated by Wall Street participants and, of course, legacy investors, which means people that trade in the old markets like the Euros, NASDAQ, stock market, and what have you. We've got that mentality. That's what we've got. All right. And it's not going to be a problem for them to offload their Bitcoin. It doesn't matter. They don't care. They're not in with the decentralization. They're not in it for, you know, not your keys, not your coin. They just want to look at it and say, okay, how much money can I make on this move? Okay, I've made the money. Cool. Get out. Let's go to the next asset class. Let's go over to gold. See the difference between Bitcoin and gold? Wasn't Bitcoin compared to gold? An investor's going to look at it and say, hold on a second, man, gold is where it's at. And that is evident with price action just shooting to the upside. So the idea of this here about Bitcoin going to 99,000, if we actually just look at the story, it's based on technical analysis, all right? That's the idea, all right? It's technical analysis. If it loses a specific range, it says here, 2 structural inflection zones anchor this bearish risk. Acceptance below 107,000 on a weekly close would open up more downside risk to a 99,000. In other words, if Bitcoin is going to take a slump, okay, then Bitcoin has to find support at 107,000. What's at 107,000? 107,000, ladies and gentlemen, is the last low over here, okay? The logic says that this would be the most appropriate area for Bitcoin to really find its support. It needs to find support in that range. The consolidation that's found over here is not as much. I mean, if Bitcoin can sustain this level, then okay. But if it cannot sustain this level, this is the only next logical zone for Bitcoin to sustain itself, because look at the time of consolidation. You got more consolidation here than you have here. So logic says we really need to see Bitcoin spending as much time as possible here to suggest the idea that they're protecting this low down here. Now, when you look at Bitcoin from a structural point of view over here, you can see on the daily time frame, it has pulled back quite aggressively yesterday, and they've broken the 50 EMA, 5 and 13 EMA starting to roll down as well. This is the only next logical spot for Bitcoin to sustain itself. We do have this vector candle down here. So hopefully if Trump turns around today and says something great, then okay, it's great news for us. Quickly going into it. See, sudden $200 billion crypto sell-off sparks fresh Bitcoin price crash fears. This is not FUD, ladies and gentlemen. This is to get you to understand who's buying, who's selling. Let's have a look. Going over into Bitcoin order flows. Quickly get this done for you. So in front of you, you've had quite a successive amount of bids coming in. Look, these guys are buying, buying, buying. We know at some point these dudes are going to offer out and sell their Bitcoin, which means price is going to go up, okay? And you can see down here, we had quite an influx of people coming in at 111,500, sorry. And the book itself, look, other than the fact that you've got 35 million to be offered at the top side of 114,333, got new bids coming in, but there's not much activity, okay? I think today with Powell, if he turns around and says, we need more data, the markets are going to go down, okay? But Bitcoin, we need to see more of this stuff up here, all right, to solidify the idea of buyers coming in. Because these guys are coming into the market to participate in selling. They want to offer out. All right, they offer. See this guy up here? He wants to sell $35 million worth of Bitcoin. He can only do that if someone comes along and says, Bitcoin to the moon. Yay. And then he's like, I'll buy it. He'll sell it into them because previously he's been buying all the way down here. That's the logic that we look at this chart over here. We go on the logic that if there's a dude, look, here we go, hypothetically. He's been buying at 34 million. It's not the same dude. We don't know. But that person has bought 34 million as prices come down. And equally, he's going to want to sell it as it moves back up again. Okay, even though that's a different figure, it's lower and what have you. But I'm trying to get you to understand the logic of when they bid, they pick up and pick up. Here we go, 31 million sold and bought at 112,222. Okay, logic says that that could be that participant up there wanting to sell it for a $2,000 move in Bitcoin, $35 million. Happy days, he's made his money. That's the problem we've got with Bitcoin right now. It gets bullied, it gets buoyed off by Wall Street because they buy it and they sell it, they buy and they sell it. And these are, in essence, these whales that participate in this buying and selling with Bitcoin, which then takes away the idea of everyone's like, oh, Bitcoin needs to do this by the cycle. It needs to break this structure by the cycle. Speaking of which, going into the order flow, we can just break it down. Here we go, the open interest. We are at this point of open interest right now, 111,959-ish. Where this would be deemed as a valid area of support. If Bitcoin loses the 12K, it's dustbin. All right, Bitcoin is dustbin. Someone order a taxi for anyone holding Bitcoin because they're going to be riding a very long road trip down Route 66, scratching their bald heads. All my bald people, show me some love, man. But what I'm trying to say to you is there's going to be some very interesting action happening in this range. If it loses 112, we've got a problem, okay? Because some of you just don't want Bitcoin to go down. The idea of it being cheaper doesn't appeal to you, all right? So what you got to understand is there's different levels of value that are being exercised right now. You got all the participants that have been buying inside of this range. They don't want Bitcoin to go lower, all right? Then you've also got the participants that have been buying inside of this range that don't care because price is not really close to where that purchase point is. Then you got these dudes all the way down here that are laughing. They don't care. They're actually buying up here as a retrace continuation to the upside. Remember, I'm saying this. Bitcoin will gun for its all-time highs again, but it's preparing itself to do so, okay? So just take that into consideration when you are looking at Bitcoin. Quickly going into the Solana. The Solana itself, nice sharp movement, and it has been going up quite a bit. Third hit to the high is a little bit of a problem for me, but it has tapped the 50 EMA, not the quite 50 EMA, but the cloud. And usually what you'd be looking for, in my opinion, is you're looking for bid side support on Solana inside of this range between the 200 and the 180 zone. That's something really important for Solana to sustain this rally to the upside. And going over to Ethereum, which has spent the longest amount of time at its all-time highs and it hasn't broken down. Problem we've got this big block principle right here, which if Ethereum does actually invalidate this zone, which it has, okay, we're probably going to start seeing Ethereum coming back down again. It spent a long time at its all-time highs in this range. Now, going into it all, let's just quickly break down the logic of where we are with some stocks. So let's just have a look at the stock market for a second. So NASDAQ, as of close yesterday, did manage to do relatively... Whoa. That's not NASDAQ. Here we go. So yeah, yesterday, NASDAQ came in with volume above average only because of what was going on with the NVIDIA purchase or the investment by NVIDIA. It's just not stopping going up, ladies and gentlemen. Volume is coming in higher, which is consistent with what you want to be seeing, okay, to the upside. But let's just quickly go and have a look at our good old favorite stocks. We're going to be getting involved in these very, very soon. Where are we? Here we go. So Circle. Let's have a look at this bad boy. What are you up to in the pre-markets? Up 0.97%, ladies and gentlemen. It stinks. Looking nice. Okay, then. So it's doing relatively okay. Seems like it's found its base right here. And this is the first bout of volume in average that has come in above average right there. So lots of volume was transacted at that point. So that's great news for us inside of the Circle. Quickly going over into bullish as well to put it into perspective where we are. These are two stocks that I am getting ready to buy very, 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 very soon. I just want to wait for this story with Trump and what he has to say. And of course, you can see bullish is doing relatively well. It's up 0.06% in the pre-market. It's not really great, but it's a new exchange as such. So just make sure that you are paying close attention to this, of course. So it seems like it's doing okay, but we're paying close attention to those two asset classes anyways, okay? Now, quickly going over into something very more interesting than that. I just want to go and have a look at USDT. Where are we? Here we go. USDT dominance seems like it's basing out inside of this range. We need this to go down for cryptocurrency to go up, okay? And the only next logical spot for it would be inside of this range at 3.74%. If it does break down towards that point, ladies and gentlemen, I would naturally be expecting a lot of buying support to come into play for Bitcoin. It will be a massive spot, in my opinion. Now, that could easily send Bitcoin down towards the 110, 109, 107 zone. But frankly, if Bitcoin, in my opinion, if it can sustain and hold this range and sweep towards it, hypothetically, if it could do something like this, boy, ladies and gentlemen, that would be the setup. That would be the best thing, okay? Because that will shake out everyone. It will convince everyone that you need to go short, and then all that leverage will come into play. The open interest over here will get reactivated, and then, of course, Bitcoin will then start to make a significant move to the upside, okay? So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that makes sense for you. Just remember, you got Powell speaking very, very shortly, going in, about 5:30 UK time. And you've also got the manufacturing data coming out at 2:45. So just sit on the sidelines, wait to see what Trump has to say about cryptocurrency. If he does come out with something that we already know, the market's going to be very muted in its response. But also be mindful that if Trump does say something good and the market reacts aggressively to the downside, just make sure you understand that they are buying at that point. Okay, they are buying it up, which could equally lead to a nice reversal to the upside. All right. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, mad love and respect. I hope that makes sense for you. Your market will be opening very, very shortly. Just get yourselves ready, get yourself a coffee, and witness the madness unfold. And I'll be tuning into you all later on.